Welcome back to Big Mouth and welcome to Monday's edition of the dceu Daily. Remember, you can tag and follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and I need a little favour from you people who like me. There's not many of you, but a few of you do like me, and you do like the channel, and you do like me on Twitter as well. I want you to respond to this video. So when I share this video on Twitter, I want you to quote tweet it. If you like the video, I want you to say, "Great video, Mick," so we can get a few more subscribers and kind of eyes on the channel. If you don't agree with what I had to say on the video, quote tweet the link for this video on Twitter and tell me why. That's just a small little favour, because this video in portions may trigger you. So we are going to talk about the neck snapping moment, the killing of Zod by Superman in Man of Steel. Now, those of you who have known me for a very long time know that I'm a massive DC fan and a genuine love of stories and storytelling and filmmaking and TV dramas. So you know that the first movie I ever saw was Superman the movie, and that was my entry into DC, and for Superman being my favourite character of all time. But you also know I have a great love for Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. I do this disclaimer because when I start talking about this subject, you may think I've gone to the dark side. I haven't. I still love Snyder's DC entries. I'm very excited about Zack Snyder's Justice League, but I need to talk about this moment. Now, I've mentioned before that it's my belief that Zack Snyder mainly directed Man of Steel and really didn't lead much kind of into the narrative of the film. And really the leads of this film and how it went and the narrative were Christopher Nolan, but mainly David S. Goyer. So I want to talk about why Goyer decided that it was important for Superman to kill Zod. Now, the defense of this has always been from all of us, you know, he's got no choice. He's gonna heat vision that family. He has to kill them. And yes, within the story, that is true. But he didn't actually have to do it, but he wanted to. The problem is, there's no actual reason to come up with this idea. I mean, I don't think that Nolan and Goyer actually realised what it was going to do when audiences saw this film and saw Superman, their hero, who's always mostly had a no-kill policy, to have him break the neck of General Zod in a film. So people were triggered. Some people were triggered. You know, it's still a big discussion on social media. It's a big discussion amongst Superman fans. Some people love it. Some people hate the idea. I never hated the idea. I was never triggered by the idea. I was more than fine of Superman having this moment where he kills. But for me, after I saw Man of Steel, and I hadn't seen Batman vs Superman at the time, I had actually assumed that this was going to lead into Superman saying in the next movie that, you know, I've killed before, I know how that feels, and I never want to do it again. This would have been a great lead into his no-kill policy. What a great origin story for Superman to kill someone and never to kill again, to promise, to pledge, because he knows what it's like to take a life of someone from his own home world, that he can never do that again. That would have been fantastic. This never happened in Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice. Now, although Batman vs Superman in the credits says written by David S. Goyer and Chris Terrio, in fact, Batman vs Superman was penned by Chris Terrio. It was actually the Man of Steel 2 screenplay that was penned by David S. Goyer. He did that screenplay, but Warner Brothers decided they didn't want to go into a Man of Steel 2 straight away. They were not happy with the box office. They felt it should have been a lot closer to $1 billion. So they decided to bring Batman in and not give him his origin film straight away. And so actually, Ben Affleck brought in Chris Terrio, who had worked with him countless times before. So it's important to get that out of the way. So we will never know if in David Goyer's Man of Steel 2, we would have had that moment where Superman says, I've killed before, I know how it feels, and I never want to do that again. But you know what? I think if you're going to do something as polarizing as have Superman break General Zod's neck, you've got to leave no room. It's got to be airtight. And it's not airtight. As I say, I was never triggered by Superman doing this because it's not an evil kill. It's not a vindictive kill. It's a kill. He kills because of his primary directive to protect all life. That's why he kills. So I always got that element, and I personally wasn't triggered by it. But I think, all right, let's discuss. How do you make this more airtight? Well, it's simple. If Goya was insistent that Superman kills Zod, and this is something that Christopher Nolan came out and said, I wasn't comfortable with this either, but when David explained to me his reasoning, I was happy with it. So even Nolan, who made 3 really dark Batman films, right? So even Nolan kind of questioned Goya on this. But anyway, how do you make this more airtight? And so I'm not saying it shouldn't have happened, but I'm saying that there's a perfect moment for Superman to make his pledge. So near the end of the film, we've got a moment where Clark and Martha are together. I think it's at Jonathan Kent's grave. This is a perfect moment when they're having the discussion, when we see the flashback of Jonathan seeing young Clark in a red cape. A beautiful moment, by the way, depicting that actually Jonathan did see him and did see the future of him being a hero, and he was comfortable with that. It's a beautiful moment. But there could have been an element in that scene when they're staring down at the grave, and maybe Martha says, how did it feel to take another life, Clark? And then Clark looks at Martha and says, Mom, I'm sorry. I hope you don't feel bad. You don't think bad of me because I did this. I didn't have a choice. But feeling how I felt after taking his life, I never want to have that feeling again. I will never kill again, Mom. I will never kill again, Ma. It would have been perfect. So all those shitheads who tore that moment apart just because they were looking for something to shit on the movie about wouldn't have had a leg to stand on. Superman has pledged, after killing another Kryptonian, that he will never do it again. It would have been perfect, but we never saw that. And we never saw regret for this action in Batman vs. Superman. In fact, Batman vs. Superman takes a deeper dive in deconstructing Superman. Now, no matter what the detractors of Man of Steel say, I don't think that Man of Steel deconstructs Superman. In fact, I think Man of Steel elevates Superman. And I don't think there's there's no problem for me with Man of Steel. And I actually like the way that Nolan and Goya wrote the film. That, it was a somber film in places, but it also had some levity at times. I think is kind of hot. The last scene in the Daily Planet between Clark and Lois and Perry, it's a beautiful scene, Welcome to the Planet, and Clark's got a rosy grin on his face. It's beautiful, and you're looking forward to the next film. But the way they end that film, nothing gives you a clue to what kind of film BVS is going to be. When Clark's smiling away at the end of Man of Steel at the Daily Planet, you think, well, maybe this is the kind of tone we're going to have in Man of Steel 2. But we didn't get that. We got a somber tone. We got a darker movie. We got a deconstructive movie. A deconstructive movie I really like. But in truth, if Goya came back to do a Man of Steel 2 instead of BVS being the next film, I think maybe in terms of the mainstream, that would have helped the franchise a lot more. Because as much as I love Batman vs. Superman, it put Warner Brothers in an impossible situation. And in the end, it forced them to make an incredibly crazy, dumb decision of driving Snyder off the property. But by Nolan and Goya not penning the next movie, and it being totally Zack's vision, it polarized audiences even more. They'd already been polarized because Superman, the character that's really never had a no-kill policy, killed Zod. And he didn't just kill Zod, he breaks his neck. It's a really violent way to kill someone. And I think for diehard Superman fans, it was really difficult. And I understand their kind of the way they're thinking there. Even though I was always okay with the killing of Zod, I'm fine with it because he's doing it because he needs to protect that family, and that's okay. But no, not everyone is going to accept that. And I think You could have fixed this so easily, David, just by having Superman say, because he knew what it felt like to kill someone that he didn't want to kill again. And I'd love to know what you think there about my hot take. Comment down below. And again, quote tweet the link on Twitter when I post this video later on. But by now, it would have already been posted because it's uploaded, but I'm not uploading this till later. But by the time you're watching it, it's timey-wimey. It's fun. So I'd love you to know. I'd love to know your thoughts on my hot take. We're going to discuss Wonder Woman 84. This is another polarizing DCEU film, but not on the level of Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. There's different reasons for this. So first I'm going to read you an article from comicbook.com, and then we're going to talk about a critics in general, and the platform of Rotten Tomatoes. So here we go. Wonder Woman 1984's Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot wanted to inspire people to save our world. And you know what? That final act does that. I feel so uplifted after that third act, even though I have issues with the rest of the film, because I think the pacing's so slow and it's not that entertaining. I still find elements of kind of the previous act. I think Maxwell Lord is a very interesting character. But I think, the pacing was off in the film. But the third act, even though there's not much action in it, I do think it's uplifting. And I think what Patty wanted to do in that third act actually worked. So let's read what's said. Wonder Woman 1984's Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot wanted to inspire people to save our world with their film. A lot of digital ink has been spilled about the sequel, and a lot of it notes the hopeful tone of Wonder Woman 84. Deadline talked to the director and her star about their aims for the movie. A lot of fans wondered what Jenkins was angling for when tying the second film in the series to the 80s. After seeing the film, it becomes clear that the filmmaker has no problem with tweaking some of the excess of the decade. Pedro Pascal's Maxwell Lord is a living embodiment of that more is better ethos as a villain. So Gadot and her director both think encouraging people to see beyond themselves was a great takeaway for the film. And I think that element is beautiful and it works for me, no question about that. Jenkins in particular thought that a more serious take on a moral was necessary after the first Wonder Woman. We wanted to talk about something quite a bit more serious than we did with the first film, which is about the crisis facing our world, Jenkins explained. How do you use a superhero to inspire and reach the people of tomorrow, the kids of tomorrow, and the younger people of the world to save our world? I mean, if we're not doing that with our superhero films, what are we doing? But because it was a more serious subject, I wanted it to be more enjoyable visually, right? A more enjoyable visible ride. And so I love the idea of the 80s. It countered the seriousness of our message with something fun and delightful. So she's kind of trying to justify the more campy version of this film with saying she was trying to put a really inspirational message at the end. So she wanted it also to be fun. I get everything she's saying, apart from the fact saying that this is more serious than the Great War, World War I in the first film. Patty, people fucking suffered in World War I in the Great War. And you will never know because you weren't there. I wasn't there, right? People suffered, Patty. And it's a lot more serious than anything you're dealing with in this film. Now, I get what you're saying about inspiring the next generation to save our world. And I like that. But please never say this is more serious than those poor people in the Great War had to suffer. Anyway, we go on. I never really realised what an impact she had on people across the board, all around the world, Gadot added. This is the biggest movie and the most ambitious movie I've ever got to work on. And once we had the script and the vision, we just made sure that everyone gave 1,000% for 8 months to make sure that we could give the best movie we can to these amazing, amazing fans. Do you know what? I love Gal's positivity. She really is a great woman. In a conversation on WTF with Mark Maron, Jenkins talked about her mixed feelings surrounding the HBO Max release strategy. Oh, here we go. I have the weirdest mix of feelings because I never would have thought I could be okay with this. Never. I'm pure theatrical experience person, the director reflected. However, as the year went on and suddenly, when this idea came up of doing it this way at Christmas, it felt so right. I was like, now is the moment. I myself am craving seeing the film. I'm craving what that film has in it. And I've seen it so many times, I can't handle seeing it again. But I'm thirsty for positivity and bigness and escape and all of those things. And I think that's it, yeah. So that's that. So I'm just going to pause for a minute because here comes the negativity. Right, so I like what Pattingale had to say. I like the way they want to inspire the next generation to save the world. And let's be clear, I like the third act. It is so good. It makes you excuse the rest of the film for being, I'd say, mediocre. It's not bad, it's not trash, it's just mediocre compared to what we had in the first film. But that third act is beautiful. So right, let's talk about a film critic called Carl Smith. He's verified. Critic at large, at NRO, fellow at NRO Institute columnist, at New York Post and literary critic, at New Criterion, turned off notifications for those who don't follow me. Right, so this is him. So he's verified. He seems like a very important chap. And this is what this important chap had to say. So he shows us a picture of Wonder Woman 1984's critic score on Rotten Tomatoes going down for 59%. That means it is now verified rotten. So this is what this charming chap had to say. We did it, guys. It's officially rotten. Reminder that there was a major gaslighting campaign around this in early December, and this is what he's highlighting. This is what he calls gaslighting, by the way. Wonder Woman 1984 hailed as what we all need right now as first reactions roll in. This is what he's calling gaslighting. So what's this guy's problem? I've already forgotten his name. He's so irrelevant to me. Carl Smith. So what's Carl Smith's actual problem with this film? And why is he celebrating critics rating it down to a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes? I can only ensue and gather and assume that this man is a right-wing activist. He didn't like the fact that Pedro Pascal's Maxwell Lord is very similar to Donald Trump, and he didn't like the commentary of the film. Either that or he's a Disney stan. But I'm going to go for my first prediction. It's time, everyone. It's time for Rotten Tomatoes to be made redundant. It's time for critics like this gentleman to be made redundant. Now, I have a lot of friends who are critics. They're really good people, and they're in the game. They're in that line of work to inform us, to tell us about what to watch, what to, avoid, right? And that's fine. It's your opinion. I'll look at your opinion. Most of the time with reviews, I'll say, F you, I'm going to see the film and make my own mind up. That's fair enough. And it's like Rotten Tomatoes. In its inception, it was there to do the same thing, to guide the audience, to tell them what to go and see, what to avoid, so they don't waste their money. It was a good barometer. But whatever the reasons for starting Rotten Tomatoes, it's become extremely toxic. They've even had to change how they do the fan verifications, the audience scores. Rotten Tomatoes is no longer something of positivity. It's toxic. As are critics like Mr. Carl Smith. These people need to be taken out like a cancerous tumour because they are bringing movie conversations down. They are not going to stop people watching Wonder Woman 1984. Even though, I have issues with some of Wonder Woman 84, I've ordered the 4K. I think it's a solid DCEU movie. It's average in places, great near the end in the third act. It's not terrible. But what this man is doing, celebrating that him and his friends, his critic friends, have downvoted Wonder Woman 1984. These are the same people who go onto the audience scores and say we're just a bunch of toxic fans voting down films purposely. And I don't doubt that that happens. This is actual proof that Rotten Tomatoes is no longer a force of good. It's no longer a good barometer on what you should see and what you shouldn't see. It's not about that anymore. Like everything else on Twitter, everything has become political. There is a political divide globally, but mostly in America. And this is where the fandom menace stem for as well. So as a lover of storytelling and films and film production and TV production, this wounds me a great deal. it's time, not all critics, but it's time to make, toxic people like Mr. Carl Smith redundant. And it's time not to go on Rotten Tomatoes. If you've had enough of Rotten Tomatoes, don't use them. Make sure that the eyes on their site are reduced. And we can get rid of this toxicity from movie and TV conversation. Again, quote tweet me on my link for this video over on Twitter. And also comment down below. Like, share and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. Don't forget, don't go yet. Next week, there'll be some big conversations, big hype for Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I'm hoping to hear something positive about David Ayer's cut of Suicide Squad as well. So come back tomorrow with another DCEU Daily. Until then, have a great day, and I'll see you again soon.